All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming out to my presentation today. I'm going to be covering how to choose between FieldMaps or Survey123 for your field data collection. So by a show of hands, how many of you have used Survey123 before? Okay, most of you. And what about FieldMaps? Okay, so a lot of the information I'll be sharing with you today might not be new, but I'm hoping that you might take away some new tips and tricks from here from my experiences. I'm gonna just dive into what I've learned from using each of these apps for different projects. And you're not gonna walk away from this presentation with a binary decision maker. There's no one size fits all use for either of these apps, but I'm hoping that this will help you narrow down the best case uses for each of these apps. And I'm going to walk through things that you need to consider with how these apps are developed, how they're communicated and visualized when you finally collect your data, and best case uses for each application. So hopefully you are not using Collector or Classic anymore, since they are being sunset by Esri and they're no longer being supported because their capabilities are being rolled into FieldMaps and Survey123. I'm not going to cover Quick Capture today because I haven't personally used it for any projects yet, because it is limited to a single photo per feature, and I found that for most of the projects that I've needed for field data collection, our clients have just requested to have more attachments and photos for their features. So Boot Collector and Classic. The main and most obvious difference between these apps is their user interface. So FieldMaps is map-based. When you open it, it looks a lot like Google Map or Google Earth, and the interface is made so that you can just drop a point or select an existing feature on your app and either update it or add new attributes to it. You can also use FieldMaps for navigation to navigate from feature to feature with Google Maps or with Apple Maps. And Survey123 is form focused. You can embed a map into your Survey123 and use it similarly to how you would with FieldMaps, but Survey123 can also be used without a map. It could still grab your location, but it is more oriented towards more detailed data collection, or maybe replicating paper form if you're transitioning from a paper to digital field data collection. With creating each of these forms, you can set them up on ArcGIS Online, and you actually have to set them up on ArcGIS Online. So you do need an account to create either a Survey123 survey or your FieldMaps app. But with Survey123, you also have the additional functionality that comes with using Survey123 Connect, which is an additional app that you then have to download to your computer. And FieldMaps does not have an additional platform to create your application on, so you are just limited to the smart forms that are available on ArcGIS Online. But one feature that I've more recently explored with Survey123 and that I found to be very useful, especially if you're just starting off with creating surveys, is their templates. They have figured out a lot of the sort of inspections and surveys that people are regularly creating for their projects, such as property damage or tree hazard surveys. And instead of having to create them yourself, you could just grab a blank survey, and if you need to tailor it more to your needs, you're welcome to start from there. But I definitely recommend going through these and looking through the different categories and how they might be useful to use, so that you don't have to recreate from scratch each time you need to make a survey. So this is an example of the ArcGIS Online interface for creating your survey. And it's very similar to smart forms, and it's intuitive in the sense that you can just drag and drop your questions and your fields onto your survey, and it gives you the option to add maps or an option to add attachments, etc. And you could also use conditional questions and make certain questions restrained depending on previous responses. With creating your field map form, it has the same interface basically, and you can also make use of calculated field expressions so that you can update how data that's being input is formatted so that you have more consistent data entries. And there's also the feature to create pick lists so that you are not having to type in your data input each time and you have more consistent data. Something I more recently discovered with creating your field maps forms is that you can create your pop-ups first and then base your smart form off of your pop-ups. And this can be really useful so that you don't have to create your work twice, because pop-ups are they're essential with field maps, since you're selecting your features, seeing what kind of data is already there. You customize your pop-up first, you can go back into Smart Forms and ArcGIS Online and use your template for your pop-ups to create your smart form so that you don't have to do twice as much work. Now this is the interface for creating your Survey123 on the desktop app called Survey123 Connect. And this is definitely my preferred way of creating surveys because it allows you to tailor your survey a lot more to your needs, and you can include more specific constraints or use other layers to grab information and automatically input them into your field so that you don't have to type them in every time, and it saves the end user time as well. With both of these apps, you can go offline, and for field maps, you would download an offline map that's either created for you by the person that is developing the smart form, and that way all of the field workers have the same consistent offline map, or you could also just download your own map and pull in your layer from field maps on your phone and work from there. But with Survey123, I worked on a project that wanted to use an existing data set and transition from a paper workflow that they had been using for probably a few decades into a digital workflow. And we had all of this good data of all of the facilities that were needing to be inspected. And we wanted to provide offline access for those going out to inspect them. So we took that layer of existing facilities and put them into an inbox so that when you open your Survey123 app and you go to do your inspection, you could just search for the name of the facility that you're visiting and work with the existing information that's there and just update whatever needs to be updated or add your inspection record. So if you're offline, your survey will sit in your outbox until you are connected online again, and then it could be shared onto ArcGIS Online. With field maps, you also can work with it the same way that you would when you're working with it online, but you have to make sure that you sync up your points or your data collection when you're back online, or allow for auto syncing. But if you create your offline area ahead of time on ArcGIS Online, you can also require syncing to happen at the same time on a selected date so that your field crew doesn't have to remember to auto sync themselves. One thing that I've found to be really useful with field maps is the AGOL assistant and copying the JavaScript of the smart forms that I need if I need to recreate the same smart form for different layers or for different maps. I've had a few projects where there's a group of layers and they all need the same inspection. So instead of dragging and dropping and creating all of the custom expressions each time, I could just do it for one layer, go into ArcGIS Online Assistant, go into their view item JSON and copy that for and paste it and just plug in the correct layer that I need to create this inspection form with. An emphasis for FieldMaps is really just to make sure that your map is very easy to read visually. You want to create maybe unique symbology and make sure that your pop-ups are very straightforward because that is the strength of this app. Another nice thing about FieldMaps is that you could go in and draw polygons around an area that you want to highlight for the rest of your crew, or just to pinpoint something on your map that you want to go back and look at when you're in the office. And you can enable location sharing so that you have live tracking of your route. This might be useful in maybe for emergency situations if you're just doing drive-by damage assessments. My personal favorite feature from Survey123 is the ability to watermark attachments. Unfortunately, this feature is not available yet with FieldMaps. I don't know if it will eventually be made available within the app, but sometimes we go out and we take all of these pictures of a certain feature and we don't have a lot of context for it. Survey123 does allow you to add captions for your photos, and with FieldMaps, you can create fields like photo caption 1, photo caption 2. As far as I know, there isn't an option to automatically create a caption for each photo. But with the ability to use watermarking, you can provide more context onto your photo immediately, whether that be location information or the time it was taken or the user that took the photo. Another useful tip about Survey123 is that you can incorporate really large lists. I'm talking like thousands of names, which might be useful if you're working with plant species, for example, so that when you're typing in a name, maybe it's a Latin plant species, you don't have to rely on the person that's inputting the data to make sure that they're typing in the correct name, and you don't have to create this giant pick list on ArcGIS Online. You could just upload a CSV of all of the options that you'd like for that field on ArcGIS Online and then link it to your Survey123 app. And it'll auto-populate as soon as you start typing in some of the first few letters for whatever name you're looking for. Survey123 also has image mapping, which could be useful, maybe not always geographically. That one had a slide of all of the states in the US, but if you want to use images to collect information from people, it might be useful if you're working with people that might have language barriers. And so I thought that would be another nice trick to try with Survey123. Another favorite feature of mine with Survey123, and you could tell I'm a little biased, is that you can really try to recreate the form that we're working with in the past for inspections, because you can work with the size of your fields, and you can drag in photos, etc., so that the look and feel of the form looks almost the same on the tablet that you're working with to collect this, rather than the paper form that you were previously working with. You would do this you could do this in Word and just design your report there and upload it to ArcGIS Online, and then pull in your field names so that they populate within the different fields within your report. I will say that with feature reports, I believe it's half a credit for each feature report generated. And that's not per feature, but for each feature report. You can, it's pretty useful to try to generate these reports a couple times before coming out with an end product so that you're not wasting credits to do that. You're able to create sample reports that are watermarked, and that way you don't have to use your reports each time. You're just generating a template. This example up here highlights the use of Survey123 for public engagement. With Survey123, you don't need to always have an ArcGIS Online account to respond to your survey questions. Whereas with FieldMaps, you always need to have an ArcGIS Online account to have the application on your phone and interact with it. So Survey123 is definitely the application to use if you're working with the public or with clients that don't have seats on ArcGIS Online. A great example up here that my coworker from when I was at Orange County developed is this lost and found pet portal that a few other counties have also started to develop, which allows for people to submit information about a pet that they found and drop a point where they found them and provide some contact info so that animal services can then reach out to that person and try to reconnect them, the pet, to their home. And people can include attachments on these reports. So if you're looking for your pet, or if you found a pet, you can go on this portal, and it's a way for the public to help Orange County Animal Services to do a job that they were once doing on a forum that didn't allow for photos and was way more limited in its features. It's definitely important to practice with either of these apps to get used to them. With any apps, you're going to run into a few bugs along the way, or sometimes you might get way ahead with FieldMaps just to realize, oh, I wanted watermarking, but I've been using this app now for months, and now I need to find this workaround that already existed in Survey123 or vice versa. So it's definitely important to take advantage of if you have an Esri Academy account, they have dummy data that you could play with and create your own reports with Survey123 or FieldMaps. And there's also a lot of free resources on YouTube. I've found out most of what I know about Survey123 and FieldMaps by just watching YouTube videos. And you could create your own dummy data, and that way you're prepared when a project does come along, and you can decide between those tools which one is better suited to your needs. The main difference ultimately between FieldMaps and Survey123 again is the interface, and everything else really gets into the nitty-gritty. So it's worth using each of these apps for different projects and just seeing which ones are more useful for you and your needs. I hope that you are not using Collector or whatever the other app is also called anymore. And it's definitely worth keeping up with the apps through blogs and YouTube videos so that you see the new feature updates that come out, because I feel like every few months there is a brand new feature that I was hoping was there last time I used one of these apps. With that, I'll open my presentation up to some questions.
Do you have any questions in the back here?
Hi, my name is Bobby. I work with the city of Wilmington, and we've been looking at a way I'm trying to decide between Survey123 and FieldMaps. We have a project that's looking at sidewalk gaps, and we need workers to go out and collect field data based on those gaps, like just answer some questions. Like, say you show up to where a gap exists on the web map, fill out questions like, does it exist still? what is the length, what kind of thing like that. And I've kind of tested around with both of these. And my question really is there a way to take an already existing feature class from a map and say like click on it and enter attributes for that and like add that to a table? Because I haven't really found a way to do that. And I didn't know if there's like anything in the projects that you've worked on where you've been able to do that.
Yeah, so it sounds like you already have an existing data set and you want to be able to add more features to it with your field workers.
No, not add more features, but like add information to the features that already exist within the map. Kind of like editing the attributes, but it'd be nice instead of having to, do that with like FieldMaps. If there's a way with our Survey123, where someone doesn't need an AGOL account,
Yeah.
could just like click, like for example, these are polylines. Just like click on that line, the questions come up, enter what you need, and that information is now part of that web maps attribute table or just is stored somewhere.
With Survey123, you could use related tables so that you have your existing features and then you could inspect those existing features and add additional information without altering the original data that was input. And I believe Survey123 calls those repeats. So I don't know if you've tried using Survey123 Connect, but in there you can create these repeats with an extra table that you could create in AGOL, and the repeat is then embedded in your survey, and you can interact directly with that table so that you can inspect existing features.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Hey, my name is Andrew Michalowski from Axon Geospatial. You had a slide up that it was something about the image, and you could click on the image and indicate things, and the image mapping. Can you explain that a little more? What's going on there?
I haven't had to use image mapping for any projects that I've used yet, but so I can't speak on that too much. I think it's a pretty new feature that's been rolled out, but
Gotcha. Okay, I'm just curious, like, are they image files and you have to map out what you can click and they correspond to attributes or something? I was just curious about that.
Yeah, I would imagine it would be something similar to a feature layer, but again, I don't want to speak too much on it since I haven't used it myself.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Well, thanks, Laura.